If you need a modern replacement Saturn controller, you might want to hear what I have to say about this one. Alright, so this is going to be a little review at the controller for Sega Saturn from Old School. It has a 10-foot cable. It looks pretty much exactly like the classic Sega Saturn controller. We'll do a bit more comparisons in a second. We've got to read the fun blurb on the back. Is your Saturn controller missing, or did your dog chew it to shreds? No matter the problem, Old School is here to save the day with this replacement controller for the Sega Saturn. Not only does it have the same classic feel and also includes a 10-foot cable, Mom will be so pleased now that you don't have to have your face pressed to the TV. Now plug this bad boy in and get back to some of the best retro games out there. You got that damn right. Thanks, China. Alright, so right off the bat, it looks exactly how you'd expect it to. Here is a original Sega Saturn controller for comparison. And yep, it's pretty much the same. The original Sega Saturn controller, of course, they're a little old. They're clicky. They got that uncomfortable sound. This is clicky. I mean, this should be clicky. That just feels good. Everything feels fine. You know what? The Sega Saturn controller is a good, gosh darned controller. Right off the bat, I'm feeling this. I think this feels pretty much the same weight. Yeah, it's about the same weight. What's nicer about this is it's a little bit quieter. So that's going to be a little nicer for recording. These don't click. They have a bit of a clack. This one doesn't. This one does. What's kind of handy there is if I can maybe change the focus a bit. It has the symbols, the playback symbols there. The repeat, stop, play and pause, as well as the next track. One's there. Start doesn't have anything in particular, but that's kind of nice. That's a little detail that I feel like they would have left out that the original Saturn controller absolutely had, because, you know, of course it could play CDs, and that was something to boast. Got the Old School logo instead of the Sega Saturn logo, and no, that's fine. You got to put your branding on there. Otherwise, yeah, it feels pretty much the same. Maybe, you know, fresher, newer, of course, a little quieter. I'm going to play a couple games with it and get back to you. The beginning of this video was filmed before I started doing games for this series. The games I've recorded and about to list were all played with this controller. Double Switch has little input and is a mess of a game, so I can't say how the controller performance affected it. The same can be said about the Mansion of Hidden Souls, which I did a full playthrough of. Blast Chamber requires quite a bit more input. The game itself is pretty jank, but it felt as jank as I remember it. Once again, pretty hard to tell. Dark Savior, which is a much lengthier one I played to the end, controlled pretty awkwardly. So awkwardly that I did attempt my original controller. Turns out the game really does feel like that. Finally, the real test, Guardian Heroes. This game I have played so much that I am intimately familiar with everything about it. It requires a great deal of input as it has fighting game style move inputs and timing. I can honestly say this still felt amazing and the controller performed well. The only difference between this controller and the original is when this one is plugged in, it sticks in there very tightly, whereas the original will slip out with a more comfortable ease. If you consider that a downside, it's really the only one. This has my personal recommendation.